So what's the planning obligation? What can it cover? What should it not cover? So let's have a look. Okay, so what is a planning obligation? Now, normally we're talking in terms of Section 106 agreements, and I've got my little arrow there. But the term planning obligation is a generic term, and it refers to a class of particular documents. We have Section 106 agreements and unilateral undertakings. Now, both are planning obligations for the purposes of the 1990 Act, the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. The difference is Section 106 agreement is a bilateral deed which is signed by both the local planning authority and the persons interested in the relevant land. A unilateral undertaking is a deed executed by the person interested in the relevant land, but it is not signed by the local planning authority, hence the word unilateral. It comes from one party only. So we will find in practice that developments are often underpinned by either Section 106 agreements or unilateral undertakings. We treat them both in the same way, but as I say, they fall under the generic heading of planning obligation. Now, press the button and see what happens. Yep. Okay, so that's my little man, my little avatar. So what does Section 106 actually do in practice? Well, it binds successors in title. And I've got a little bit of a diagram here. So let's imagine that we have the ordinary law of contract, and a landowner enters into a contract with a local planning authority, a council. Then in normal circumstances, the situation is governed by the principle of privity of contract, which means that the landowner is in a contractual relationship with the council and vice versa. And if the landowner is in breach, then the council can sue the landowner. However, and this is often the case, if the landowner sells on, then in most cases, the council cannot sue the successor in title due to this doctrine of privity of contract. So how do we get around that? Well, that's where Section 106 comes in, because it creates a nexus between the council and the successor in title. If there is a breach of a planning obligation, Section 106 agreement stroke unilateral undertaking, then the council has the option of suing either the landowner or the successor in title, or both. And where we are dealing with the transfer of property on a residential basis, we're normally acting for the successor in title. And this is why Section 106 agreements are so important, because we're acting for the successor, and the successor, in theory, is liable to the council for breaches.